This is not 1980s OSU.
We are back at it. Welcome back to another edition of the Pistols Firing Podcast. I'm Carson Cunningham, joined as always by Colby Powell. Colby, how you doing on this, what is today, Wednesday? How you doing on this Wednesday? Anything going on in the OSU sports world today?
Not a whole lot, no. National duels, South Florida's in town. That'll probably be mostly what our South Florida coverage centers around is the basketball game tonight. Yeah, a lot of things going on. The girls are in New York City. Mike Gundy's an OSU hockey fan now. So, yeah, no, not too much going on. By the way, can I make a quick observation? You and I never discuss whether we're going to wear hats to do this show, and yet I find that we always either come in hat or no hat on the same day, and it just goes unspoken. And today, whenever you logged on, I was like, all right, I'm pointing out the no hat situation because somehow we're in lockstep on that, and we've never once discussed it.
I think that's a weekend thing. On Sunday, you and I are probably a little groggy. Just throw a cap on. That might be a work day thing. That might be our reasoning for that. Yeah, lots to discuss. Welcome to all the South Florida fans and media who are probably watching this show. I'm going to give you kind of a quick rundown of who I am. I'm not just some Joe Blow with a Twitter account and a podcast. I have an extensive media and journalist background. We'll get to that, but first, let's hear from Chris's University Spirit, your one-stop Cowboy shop. Be sure to shop at chrisuniversityspirit.com. Get the latest, greatest Oklahoma State apparel online, or if you're in Stillwater, you know where to find them. They're Chris's long-time sponsor of the podcast. And Section 231 got a college game day story about them. They've just taken over the college football landscape with the shirtless twirling over the heads. OSU has been way down for 2.5 years now, but they still are somewhat the talk of the sports world in college football. So be sure to shop at Chris's. We appreciate them sponsoring the podcast as always. So, Colby, I mean, let's just start here. Again, welcome to South Florida media fans. And look, I can certainly empathize with you guys. It's not fun to have your head coach, who has had so much success there, really restored South Florida football, what it once was under Jim Leavitt, who did an amazing job there getting that football program going. Look, it's not fun. And we here in Stillwater and Oklahoma State, and in the state of Oklahoma, we went through this with Les Miles. When LSU was interviewing him behind the scenes, talking to him, everyone kind of knew about it. Les denied it in the locker room of the bowl game, much to the chagrin of the players there. It's not fun. I get it. And you're probably wondering who the hell I am and what do you know? What sources do you have? You're just a guy with a YouTube account, a Twitter account. Well, that's not the case. My name is Carson Cunningham. I was a sports anchor in Oklahoma City for 13 years. Went to journalism school. Professor Joey Sennett up there is one of the primo media law professors in the country. Learned under him what to do and what not to do when reporting accurate information. Started my career at the NBC affiliate in Oklahoma City under two legends, Bob Berry Sr., who called OU football and basketball for many, many years, and Oklahoma State before that, and his son, Bob Berry Jr., two just behemoths and legends in this state, and bulldog reporters, and taught me a lot about how to accurately report on stories, what to run with and what not to. And so that's my background. My background's in journalism, and I take that extremely seriously. I abide by those ethics and those codes. So just to give you a little background on if I know what I'm talking about or not, Colby, just bear with me here. I got to kind of get on this spiel here.
Hey, I'm riding passenger for a few minutes. Take it away.
So last December, after Oklahoma State finished their season, got blown out by Colorado. I was the first and only person to put out publicly that there was going to be a showdown between Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State. And it was quiet for a long time, and I maintained that. I never backed off of that. I said he's going to have to lower his buyout and lower his contract and make staff changes. Those staff changes weren't coming for like a week. Midweek, I'm the only one really looking this up, the Board of Regents meeting schedule. I put that out publicly, said, hey, there's a Board of Regents meeting Friday, and Mike Gundy will be discussed. And then boom, all of a sudden, all the media is at the Board of Regents meeting. They weren't putting that out there. They didn't know about it because they didn't have the sources that I had, that was going to happen. And then it became very public when, who I believe leaked it to ESPN, I think that was Mike Gundy, to put Oklahoma State's feet to the fire, and it did. There was a lot of public backlash towards Oklahoma State, towards Chad Weiberg, and towards the Board of Regents. And that situation, and what happened? His contract was lowered, his buyout was reduced, and he not only made staff changes, he fired everybody. He was the last man standing. So 100% accurate on that, all that reporting throughout, ahead of time, during, and after. This summer, Chad Weiberg, the athletic director, his contract was up in June. We're into the August months, early September. You had multiple outlets reporting that Chad Weiberg was going to be gone. Everyone was speculating, and everyone just assumed Chad Weiberg was going to be out as athletic director. I was the only person publicly reporting, not only will Chad Weiberg be back as the athletic director, but he's going to make the new hire for the football program. And just to reiterate my integrity and my credibility, which I take extremely seriously, I had a source reach out to me the night before Mike Gundy was fired, saying that he was hearing Mike Gundy was going to be fired the next day. I couldn't confirm that with another source, so I didn't put it out there. I'm not chasing clout. I'm not engagement farming. I'm not putting anything out there that's not fully vetted and accurate. If I was chasing clout and chasing clicks, I would have put that out there and just hoped I was right, because that's a big story. That is a massive story covering Oklahoma State, one of the biggest stories in decades. And so I have the integrity not to put something out there I'm not 100% certain on. And so those are some of the pelts on the wall that I've had since last December. I'm batting 1,000 since last December. I've been way ahead of this story on the coaching search. No one was linking Alex Golesh to this job back in October. I was the first one to put that out there, that he had been in talks with Oklahoma State and that he interviewed with Oklahoma State. Now, when I say interviewed with Oklahoma State, let's get this straight. It's well known and publicly confirmed by Chad Weiberg that they've hired a search firm, Turnkey, who he used to hire the men's basketball coach, Steve Lutz. That's how this all works. This isn't Chad Weiberg hops on a plane, the athletic director, and meets Alex Golesh in Tampa or Dallas or wherever that may be, and they sit down and they have a beer together and get to know each other. That's not how this works. This is all above board. This is all a zero-sum game with hiring coaches who have jobs. Chad Weiberg called this a high-integrity search, and that's what these search firms are hired to do. It also makes everything legalese. Did he talk to Oklahoma State directly? Did he talk to Chad Weiberg directly? He can stand up at a podium and say no, which we're going to hear from Alex Golesh here in a second. But so those are some of the stories I've reported on, and I've been probably the prohibitive source when it comes to what's going on at Oklahoma State here over the last year, since last December. And so, Colby, tell me if I've said anything wrong there, because again, I understand where some South Florida media are coming. I understand where these fan accounts are coming from. Who's this guy? He doesn't know anything. He's just a podcaster hoping to get some engagement. I don't need the engagement. I don't need to make a name for myself. I don't. There's nothing in it for me other than people at Oklahoma State and fans who listen to this show and are just fans in general want to know what's going on. And if I have accurate information, why wouldn't I report on that? That's been my background. That's what I've done my whole career. I get criticized a lot by people like Robert Allen, who I guess put out an article today saying, you know, people that have been reporting on this story are clickbait and blah, blah, blah. That's a bunch of you know what. I don't need to do that. I'm not just some jabroni with a Twitter account hoping to get likes. So, Colby, tell me if I've said anything inaccurate there.
No, not at all. So Carson does the reporting on this show. I do the reacting. I do have a journalism degree from Oklahoma State as well, and I've been in and out of media spaces for the last 10, 11 years since I left school. If I can further back Carson's credibility, we do this show twice a week. I consider Carson a very good friend. I spend more time actually talking to you than I do just about anyone else in my life. Probably my wife and my daughter I talk to more, actually having conversations, not texting, not on social media, actual conversations with, probably more than anyone else in my life. Carson has not even given me one shred of a hint as to who he might even be hearing from in Stillwater anytime over the past year. Nothing. Not a morsel of an idea of who he's talking to. And yet he's been right every step of the way. So he reports, I react. Also, last week we had a good chuckle. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Bet Online, this offshore betting site, puts out odds to be the next head coach. And Alex Golesh was like 25-1. He had worse odds than John Gruden to be the next head coach at Oklahoma State. And Carson, you came on this show and you said, those are goofy. They don't know what they're doing. That's not a real book. Those aren't real odds. And the same goofy site now, just like overnight, took him from 25-1 to a -300 smashing favorite to be the next head coach at Oklahoma State. Next closest is Zach Robinson at 5-1. Eric Morris is at +650. Alex Golesh is -300 to be the next head coach at Oklahoma State. Now, you held firm on that even whenever those goofy numbers came out. So, yes, I back Carson's credibility. He's been right the whole time. I have no idea who he's talking to, but whoever you're talking to, they've given you pretty good information, and I have no reason to doubt it at this point.
Yeah, and to take it a step further, you know, I've seen people try to discredit me by saying, well, we've all known that it's Alex Golesh, it's Eric Morris, and Colin Klein. We just know that. Well, how do you know that? No one else has been reporting on that. I reported as the interviews took place. Alex Golesh, Eric Morris, Colin Klein. I see Kane Womack's name being thrown out there by other websites and stuff now out of thin air. Where did they get that? I wonder. I'm the only one who reported on that. So for people to say that, oh, this is just common knowledge. Well, you wouldn't have this common knowledge if I wasn't putting it out there, because I've seen other, I like McLean Baxley. I like him a lot. I think he does a good job. I follow him. Does a good job reporting on Oklahoma State. I reported on the Saturday last week, the tweet that's now brought a lot of South Florida fans here, that reiterating what I reported late October, that he interviewed for the job. And then not only that, but he's the top candidate to replace Mike Gundy. And then I see basically a verbatim tweet from McLean saying the same thing. So people are piggybacking off my reporting. That's what's been going on. If you're wondering who I am, what I'm saying, is it accurate? Clearly it is, because people are latching on to it, and I think the people that are paying attention know that I've said a lot of these things before they've happened throughout. So that's who I am. Again, last thing I'll say before we hear from Alex Golesh, I take this extremely seriously. Credibility is all you have in this game. It's a zero-sum game, much like coaching searches. You put something out there and get it wrong, people are going to tune you out. They're not going to pay attention. That's how you get a reputation as a clickbait artist, if you're just putting stuff out there hoping to be right. I don't do that. So I can't be any more clear on that. So let's hear from Alex Golesh. It was bound to happen. He was going to get questions about the Oklahoma State job, rightfully so. So let's hear a student journalist asked Alex Golesh about the Oklahoma State job, if he's had talks with him, and here's what he had to say at his press conference this week.
Talking to Oklahoma State about and interviewing about taking the job there. I wanted to give you the record or give you a chance to set the record straight if you've had any talks with them.
Yeah, I've not. Yep, I've not. And I addressed it a couple of weeks ago. I'm so focused and locked in on this program, this team. We got so much work to do, but I have not. Trying to stay away from the social media piece. And it's for me, I said it a couple weeks ago, but it's humbling that people bring your name up. It's because these guys have done an elite job of building this place to where people are taking notice. Credit to our kids, credit to our staff, but I have.
Coach, there's been rumors circulating
There you have it, Colby. Again, a pretty, I think, emphatic denial that he's talked with Oklahoma State. And look, this is kind of how these things go. And it's, Alex Golesh is put in a really, really tough spot. And every coach is that currently has a job, they're currently playing. I know he's out of the college football playoff picture, but he's still coaching a team full roster, a lot of people dependent on him. And again, Oklahoma State hired Turnkey, a very reputable, very high-dollar search firm to conduct this coaching search. And the way it's been articulated to me is how these things go is Chad Weiberg, the athletic director, decides what he wants asked of any candidate, what fully vet this candidate with this criteria. And the search firm goes and does that. And that's how that process plays out. Now, am I sitting here saying I know all the facts, that he flew to this location, met with Turnkey, and they recorded his answers? I don't know the ins and outs of how that process, the details of that process. I just know that the search firm conducts the interviews, whether that's just with Alex Golesh, just with his agent. The fact is, he interviewed with Oklahoma State. He laid out his plan for coaching at Oklahoma State and his interest in Oklahoma State. And I was told his interview was a 10 out of 10. And I think there's a reason he was the first coach that I heard interviewed for the job. I think he's been their top candidate. I think Turnkey identified him as a perfect fit. And we'll get into his profile and why he is a perfect fit here in a second, Colby. And the reason you hire a search firm is for Alex Golesh to stand up there and give the exact answer that he just gave. I haven't talked to Oklahoma State. I haven't talked to Chad Weiberg. That's technically true. I think he's talked to the search firm. That's why OSU is not paying Turnkey the sums of money they're paying them to make it to put Alex Golesh in a position to lie. They're not going to do that. And so the way the question was posed, talks with Oklahoma State, I haven't talked to them. That's kind of the loophole and the legalese and the things you have to do if you're in his position and if you're Turnkey in Oklahoma State. So that's the way it's been described to me, Colby.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation to be in as a coach. There's a locker room full of guys depending on him. He obviously has a lot of love in his heart for South Florida, for his time there, for the people down there, the people who depend on him day in, day out. It's a good question by the student journalist. You don't want to go so direct with the question as to say, will you be the head coach at South Florida next year? You're really painting a coach into a corner at that point. Asking if you've talked with somebody, that's a good question, I thought, to ask Alex Golesh. I just don't know what people expect a coach to say in that moment. Like you said, search firms exist for a lot of different reasons. That's one of them. But what do you expect him to do? Get up there and say, yeah, we've got a couple of games left and I'll give you my all, but I'm headed to Stillwater here in a few weeks. Like that's just never going to be the answer you're going to get from that coach. And I understand, like you said off the top, as a fan base, it's difficult to watch a coach that you've fallen in love with be publicly flirted with this with a job in a higher conference, with going to be more money, a chance to have more success there. Like all of those things, it's difficult. If Alex Golesh ends up being the guy at Oklahoma State, this could be something that we go through one day. If he's a smash here and the Texas job comes open, or the Ohio State job comes open and they're like, God, that guy down in Stillwater's crushing it. We might be going through what South Florida fans are going through right now. I get that it's difficult. I thought his answer was fine. Like you said, there are loopholes that exist in there. I thought the question was fine. I don't blame anybody for how that all transpired. I do think all signs are pointing toward Alex Golesh being the next head coach at Oklahoma State. I would be hugely in favor of that. Prior to any of this ever happening, prior to Mike Gundy getting fired, I was talking to you about Alex Golesh on this show, how great he's been at South Florida, the big win over Florida earlier this season, the turnaround of a program that was in the absolute basement of college football, which is where Oklahoma State is at right now. So I've been a big Golesh guy through and through. I'm also a big Eric Morris guy. I think he would be a fantastic hire. I've really narrowed it down to those two over the last couple of weeks on this show, and now signs are pointing toward Golesh. I think he would be a smash. So, this coaching search, Carson, when these things play out over 2.5 months, there is so much just dribbling out of information. This isn't like you fire your coach the day after the season and you're trying to make a hire by Wednesday. This is a very different situation, and it leads to a dribbling out of information, and it leads to a lot of people having a lot of opinions along the way. Because we're killing 9-10 weeks here before we get a hire. So yeah, there's going to be some people with some opinions along the way.
Well, I would disagree that there's been any dribble coming out of the Oklahoma State. I think I have read that too. People saying, "Man, this has been tight-lipped. Can't hear much." Maybe everywhere else, but not right here. I mean,
I meant the dribble. I meant the dribble from you. I didn't mean from the university. Like, okay. You're the dribble.
Well, no, I keep hearing this is so tight-lipped. This is so tight-lipped. Good job, Chad Weiberg. And like, that may be true everywhere else. I mean, I've reported who's interviewed and when, and who the top candidate has been. I haven't deviated from that one iota. When Eric Morris interviewed, and I heard it went really well, I elevated him to that tier with Alex Golesh, but at no point have I put him in front of Alex Golesh. I still maintain he is the top candidate. And in fact, Colby, can I go a little step further? South Florida fans might want to plug their ears.
We're already here. What's one more step?
At this stage, I would probably say that Alex Golesh is going to be the next coach at Oklahoma State. That's my opinion. That's not me reporting that. That's not a fact. But if I had to put a percentage on it, I would say he's probably 90 to 95% going to be the next head coach. I know people like Eric Morris, and we'll get into all those reasons, but Alex Golesh has been the leading candidate. That hasn't changed. That hasn't wavered. I think there's extreme mutual interest there, and that's what I expect to happen. Now, it's a fluid situation. If Alex Golesh doesn't get all the terms and conditions and money that he would like, then that could change the calculus there. But again, everyone else wasn't linking Alex Golesh to Oklahoma State. They were linking him to Florida. They were linking him to perhaps LSU. I know he really likes Florida State. That job's not currently open. I'm the only one that was really solidifying Alex Golesh and Oklahoma State and their mutual interest. And so I still believe he's probably going to be the next head coach at Oklahoma State. Now, I don't have that confirmed. And I frankly, Colby, when it comes to like, yes, confirmation, Alex Golesh is going to be the head coach, that's going to be tough to get, because I do think that once they make that decision and put pen to paper, that's going to be very hard to get your hands on. And I think oftentimes you see big news like that leaked from the school to a reputable national reporter for some kickbacks, whether that's a Bruce Feldman, a Chris Lowe from ESPN. There's some kickbacks there of, okay, we'll write a big feature on you this summer. We'll do this, we'll do that. They want that to come out through a very high level, high priority source. It's kind of the way it's been described to me too. So I'm going to do my best to confirm that before anyone else, but I've been told that'll be pretty tough once pen's put to paper, but I expect that to happen. I do expect it to be Alex Golesh, and that kind of leads us to Colby, kind of the reasons you liked him initially, the profile of, I guess I got to get my rundown here working for the people that like to skim. So we did the Golesh Speaks. Now let's get down to the Golesh profile. There we go. So all the reasons you liked him, Colby, is why anyone involved with Oklahoma State should like Alex Golesh to be the next head coach at Oklahoma State. I kind of want to take you through his career here, Colby. So he started his career as a GA at Oklahoma State, which is interesting. He followed Tim Beckman, who was the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma State, up to Toledo. They really hit it off. And he was put in charge of recruiting. And all this guy did was have the #1 recruiting class in the MAC 2 times in a row, 2 consecutive classes. He followed Tim Beckman to Illinois. My order's kind of out of order there, but you can follow along here if you're watching on YouTube. Followed him to Illinois. They had 2 wins the season before he got there. He was put in charge of recruiting there as well. They had some of their best recruiting classes under Alex Golesh, and they went to 2 bowl games his last 2 years there. That staff ultimately got let go. He had met Matt Campbell, the head coach at Iowa State, when they were on staff together at Toledo. Matt Campbell brings him to Iowa State, put in charge of recruiting, 4 top 50 classes. And when Matt Campbell and Alex Golesh got there, Iowa State was roughly the equivalent of Kansas, a bottom feeder in the Big 12, one of the worst Power 5 jobs in the country, frankly, in terms of wins and losses in the Big 12. He had 4 top 50 classes, 2 of which were in the top 40, and he was in charge of tight ends. And anyone that follows Big 12 football back then, their 2 tight end sets were deadly. You had to game plan for their tight ends. Charlie Kolar, who's out of Norman, Oklahoma, still scoring touchdowns for the Baltimore Ravens. He recruited him. And you had to really prepare for what Alex Golesh was throwing at you with the tight end position. He went from there to Tennessee went to UCF with Josh Heupel. They were number 2 in the country in offense. That 1 year he was there with Josh Heupel, followed Heupel to Tennessee. And this, Colby, is where he really put his stamp in the college football world. Number 1 offense in the country, 47 points per game. Led Hendon Hooker at the quarterback position. And he was put in charge of a lot of things there with recruiting, with hiring offensive staff. That's what really made him an appealing head coaching candidate, was the control and the amount of hiring and the amount of just production they had on offense there at Tennessee. And so 3 major rebuilds there: Toledo, Illinois, Iowa State. He's been front and center of some major rebuilds. He's talked a lot about that. And so that's what got him on the South Florida radar. I'm sure his time at UCF, he made some connections there. Took over, as you mentioned, Colby, one of the worst jobs in the country at the time. South Florida had won 4 games the prior 3 years. All he did his first year was win 7 games. Won 7 games the next year. He beat Syracuse 45-0 in a bowl game, has 2 bowl wins to his resume. And he's just kept it rolling. They're tied for 6th in the country in yards per play. And so when you're looking, Colby, at Oklahoma State, as you mentioned, they're at the bottom. They're, I think, 1-17 against Power 4 competition over their last 18. It's going to be one of the bigger rebuilds in recent memory in college football. And I think that, for me, and Oklahoma State, is what makes him probably the number 1 candidate over an Eric Morris, in that he's done the rebuilds. He's been there. He's done it at multiple stops as an assistant, and now he's done it as a head coach. And so that's hard to argue with, and we'll get into what Oklahoma State fans prefer. But, I mean, Colby, just that resume there just jumps off the page. That's why he's one of the top candidates for any job, not just Oklahoma State. Like, he's probably been interviewing other places too. I know Arkansas, his name's leaked out there some. But, Colby, there's a whole lot to like when it comes to Alex Golesh.
Yeah, again, I'm not worried about Arkansas. I made Arkansas fans mad a few weeks ago when I told them that if we want him and you want him, we're getting him because we're a better job. And I still think that that's true today. He's kind of the king of the rebuild. Carson, you talk about USF wins 4 games in the 3 seasons prior. He's likely, if he gets the Oklahoma State job, he'll likely be taking over a program that has won 4 games in the 2 years prior. Oklahoma State's last win against an FBS opponent, UT Martin is FCS week 1 this year. Last win against an FBS opponent was Tulsa last September. That's the last time Oklahoma State beat an FBS opponent. It's been about 14 and a half months now since that's happened. He's taking over a program that is at its absolute worst at the moment. He's a heavy recruiter. That's what Oklahoma State fans have been begging for, even throughout the entire Mike Gundy era. And again, we loved the Mike Gundy era. The successes were aplenty during the Mike Gundy era, and yet 1 conference championship in that time. And finally, when the bottom fell out, the bottom really fell out. It wasn't like there was a gradual decline for the Oklahoma State program. They went to the Big 12 championship game. They immediately lost 9 straight conference games, lost to Tulsa at home, and Mike Gundy's fired. Like, it was a quick happening because the foundation, which is the stacking of recruiting classes, wasn't there, right? Oklahoma State had not stacked top 25 recruiting classes on top of each other to give themselves some wiggle room whenever you have injuries and, maybe you don't have your best coordinators in place and things of that nature. Alex Golesh being a fiery, hungry recruiter, I think is a huge plus for Oklahoma State fans at every stop that he's been. You have to love that. And Carson, like we've talked about, and I think because the UNT offense is the hot thing in the country right now, I think, look, myself, I love what's happening with that offense. I think a lot of the Oklahoma State fan base does as well. Alex Golesh, his offenses, they put up points. Everywhere he goes, his offenses put up points. They're putting up points at South Florida, yards per play. Like you said, a great stat when he was at Tennessee. Heupel, I think, was doing a lot of the play calling there. Golesh was involved in some of it, but Golesh orchestrated the offense there. Golesh was responsible for the hires. He was responsible for the schemes. I love what he is offensively. I love what he is as a recruiter. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's been in Stillwater before. He's been a head coach doing it at a higher level, I think, than North Texas with what he's done at South Florida. So I'm a big Golesh guy. I have been the whole way through. Look, this is, again, not me knocking Eric Morris. I wasn't knocking Alex Golesh last week when I was talking up Eric Morris. These, to me, are the two best candidates for the job, and it seems like one is starting to edge out the other, and that's Alex Golesh. And I will be massively, massively optimistic about what could be a quick turnaround if he is, in fact, the hire.
Yeah, and I think if, like, the South Florida fans have been up in arms, and I've seen some media there being like, why would he go to Oklahoma? If you want to leave, okay, but Oklahoma State, why would you go to Oklahoma State? Well, you might not be familiar with Oklahoma State. For one, it's a Power 4 job. Like, I'm sorry, South Florida, I know you guys have NIL and you guys have a lot of resources, and some people that aren't as high on Alex Golesh point to that. And I certainly get that, but I think you guys are a little misinformed when it comes to Oklahoma State doesn't have the NIL that South Florida has, or doesn't have the momentum, or that Oklahoma State football is a thing of the past. That was a Mike Gundy problem. That wasn't an Oklahoma State problem. The NIL issue was a Mike Gundy issue. That is not going to be an issue at Oklahoma State. In fact, while we're here, I mean, I think the salary range that Alex Golesh is going to command is between the $5 and $6 million range. And I have heard through the grapevine that Oklahoma State's going to have close to, I think, $40 million a year put towards football. Does that do anything for you, Colby?
Hold on, give me a second. I need to process that. I need to breathe a little. Let me get a drink of water. Continue. I need to process that number you just said out loud.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes throughout a lot of different channels throughout the football program. That doesn't go straight to paying players, but the point being that dollar figure, $40 million per year to the football program, should tell people that Oklahoma State football, or Oklahoma State as an athletic department, is serious about football. That is their moneymaker. That is, Oklahoma State is not behind the times. They are not poor. They are going to have a ton of funding behind them. And make no mistake, Alex Golesh knows that. That wasn't just, hey, let's learn about Alex Golesh. Alex Golesh wants to learn what's going to be at his disposal as well. And you've heard it, Colby, as far as paying to get a big-time quarterback in here at Oklahoma State. There's a lot of reasons for Alex Golesh to take this job, South Florida media and fans. The funding will be there. He spent 1 year as a GA. He's seen that stadium, Boone Pickens Stadium at Stillwater, full. That was back in the Des Bryant days at Oklahoma State with Zach Robinson at quarterback. He's seen what Oklahoma State football looks like. It doesn't look like what it's looked like the last 2 years. I can promise you. Go look up the wins. Oklahoma State's been around 10th or 11th in wins for the last 15 years. That's credit to Mike Gundy. He did an unbelievable job pre-NIL. And Oklahoma State certainly has to get NIL figured out, but the funding's there, and they needed the right head man to do it. And I think Alex Golesh has proven he could be that man. So, look, I get South Florida fans' frustration, but don't try to act like you're better than Oklahoma State football, because you're not. You're just not. You're not on the same level in the Power 4. You have good funding. You finally are building a stadium. That's great. You're going to get an on-campus stadium. You guys are certainly up and coming. But you're well behind, and way behind, probably 20 years behind Oklahoma State when it comes to winning at football and a football program and all that entails. Stadium, fan support. I mean, I had a guy come after me on Twitter, and I had to put him in his place a little bit. The attendance of the last home games, South Florida had 27,000, Oklahoma State had 46,000. And that's for the worst team in Power 4. That's a team that is going to go 0-9 2 straight years in Big 12 play. The first time that's happened in the Big 12 since 2011. That's the level of support that Oklahoma State has behind their football program. So don't put Oklahoma State down to pump up South Florida, because you guys do have a lot of good things going for you. You do. I certainly wouldn't deny that. But that's just kind of how these things go. Coaches want to coach at the highest level. They want to get in the playoff, and the Big 12's ripe for the picking. I mean, there's no one really standing in Oklahoma State's way. Texas Tech, certainly, I think if you had to pinpoint a program that's ahead of the game and that Oklahoma State's chasing, I'd point to them. Past that, Alex Golesh could come in here and start winning Big 12 championships with all the support and funding he's going to get.
Carson, outside of the Oklahoma State community, I think there's a ton of prisoner of the moment with this football program. I think a lot of people just started watching Oklahoma State football the last week of September 2024 and are forgetting the fact that from 2010 through 2023, in a conference that featured OU and Texas, Oklahoma State was a clear number 2 in the conference at that time behind Oklahoma. That's 14 seasons that Oklahoma State was clearly ahead of the big bad Texas Longhorns. Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State wiped the floor with Texas for the majority of Gundy's career at Oklahoma State. That was a big-time football conference when OU and Texas were in it. I still think the Big 12 is a solid football conference, but obviously those are huge losses. Oklahoma State had the best team in the country in 2011. Oklahoma State was in contention to win the Big 12 title 2013, 2015, 16, 17, 2021, 2023, all of those years with OU and Texas in the conference. Now, again, the margins are razor thin. Oklahoma State actually only won one of those Big 12 championships. But all those other years I listed, 13, 15, 16, 17, 21, 23, any single one of those years, ball bounces a different direction. Oklahoma State could be Big 12 champions in those years as well. And like you said, what has happened with Oklahoma State football the last 14 months, it's not an Oklahoma State problem. It was a Mike Gundy problem. That problem has been solved. And I can assure you this much. When you say Oklahoma State cares about football, Oklahoma State knows how important football is. To the Oklahoma State people and the South Florida people, I'm talking to everybody now. You need to understand who Oklahoma State has as its athletic director. Chad Weiberg, he is a bit Sam Presti-esque in the way he operates, his understanding of the importance of different things, of how to build things, of how to have the right people in the right positions to be successful all the time across the board. He went out and got David Taylor. He was on nobody's radar. Everybody thought that they were going to hire Scott, Carson, wrestling name, Coleman Scott. Everyone thought that they were going to hire Coleman Scott. Yep. They end up going out off the wall, smash hire with David Taylor. J.C. Hoyt takes over the women's basketball program, smash hire, best program they've had in 15, 20 years. Men's basketball, Steve Lutz. That's a tournament team. I'm not going to be shocked if Oklahoma State's like a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament this year. They are really good. The battle for Alex Golesh is happening tonight in Gallagher-Iba Arena, South Florida versus Oklahoma State. Men's basketball, winner gets Alex Golesh. Carson, Chad Weiberg is absolutely the guy you want in charge of making this happen, and not just getting the hire right, but getting the support right for the hire. And I promise you, Chad Weiberg is not talking to these prospective coaches, the coaching firms, however you want to say it. He's not going and talking to these people without a serious foundation laid out for, hey, you want to come to Oklahoma State? You want to be a big-time winner? Here's how we're going to be big-time winners. Here's the money. Here's where it's coming from. Here's the support that you're going to have while you're here. I'm telling you, Chad Weiberg is going to make the right hire. The support is going to be there for that guy. And Oklahoma State football is going to be back where it was a few years ago. Again, I just think that Mike Gundy really, really didn't like what college football had turned into, and I think he kind of checked out at the end. It happens. It is what it is. We'll forever love Mike Gundy for the 20 years of success and great memories that he gave us. But we're about to move into a new era that's going to have plenty of funding and support, and I think there are going to be plenty of wins behind that.
Totally agree. And so I did put out a Twitter poll asking Oklahoma State fans who they would prefer to be the next head coach. I put Alex Golesh, Eric Morris, Colin Klein, three candidates I have reported interviewed for the job. Zach Robinson, and Elon Musk wouldn't let me put a fifth option, but I would put Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator for Alabama, on there as the fifth candidate. But I put Zach in there because a lot of people have interest in him. But Eric Morris took home 51% of the vote. Alex Golesh 29%. And look, I can understand that to a point. I mean, look, you mentioned it, North Texas, they have the better record this year. They're still in the playoff hunt. Everyone knows the Texas Tech air raid from Mike Leach. I did find it interesting, though. You know, Eric Morris and Alex Golesh were both hired in 2023. And Eric Morris took over a way better, way more stabilized football program. The prior 4 years, North Texas had won 21 games. They went to 3 bowl games. The prior 4 years for South Florida, they'd won 8 games. First 2 seasons, Morris didn't win 7 games. He had a losing record. He won 5, and then he won 6. Well, Golesh won 7-7, and he's won 7 this year. And oh, by the way, Alex Golesh beat Eric Morris 63-36 this year at South Florida. And again, people put way too much stock, I think, in wins and losses at that level. It's far more to do with your entire career trajectory. And Golesh has more experience at this level rebuilding programs than Eric Morris. Again, I think Seth Luttrell went to bowl games, I think 5 out of 6 years or 6 out of 7 years at North Texas. Way more success more recently than South Florida had. And Eric Morris coming from a lower level. I think Incarnate Word before that. So I know you like Eric Morris. I like Eric Morris. They're both great candidates. I don't mean to put Eric Morris down. I just feel like Alex Golesh ticks way more boxes in terms of who's going to come in here and put on this full-on rebuild from the ground up, because that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, to me, the most appealing thing about Eric Morris was that every quarterback he touches turns to gold, seemingly. Like, he was the first guy to get his hands on Cam Ward. He had his hands on John Mateer early. Now he's got Drew Mestemaker down there. And I think if I could sum it up, I would say Eric Morris is like the hot thing right now because of what they're doing offensively, the way they're winning games. Pardon me. North Texas really has it rolling. He's the hot thing right now. If I go back in and I dive into both complete resumes of Alex Golesh and Eric Morris, and don't allow myself to become a prisoner of the moment as to what's happened the last 6-8 weeks, Alex Golesh has the better entire resume. And also, none of us will ever know what was said in those interviews. None of us will ever know who is coming in with the better plan and who makes the university feel more confident that they're the guy to lead the program for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, however long the next head coach winds up being here. I'm just putting my trust in Chad Weiberg, Carson. Like, he's gotten all these other hires right. And the extent to which Oklahoma State and Chad Weiberg have clearly gone to make sure they got this right. And the first step to making sure they got this right was getting out in front of everyone else in what is a crazy hiring cycle in college football. Part of getting this hire right was ripping the Band-Aid off after that Tulsa game and firing Mike Gundy. Because if that is hanging over this program all season long, you do not have the momentum to go out and be leading the pack on getting in front of all of these candidates and making your pitch for why Oklahoma State is one of the best available jobs in a place that you can come have big-time success. Carson, I just trust that Chad Weiberg is going to get this right, because why wouldn't I? He's gotten all the other ones right, and every move that he's made from the moment he fired Mike Gundy to now, everything that you've reported, all the things that are coming out, every stone is being turned over. Like, Chad makes the right moves. I trust him to get this right.
Yeah, and he was taking a lot of arrows for keeping Mike Gundy. And again, a lot of revisionist history there when I was reporting that there was going to be a showdown. And once that showdown happened and it became very nasty and very public, everyone was just against, like, everyone couldn't believe they were treating Mike Gundy that way. And I went like to the national level. Like, they're trying to get rid of Mike Gundy. Oh my God. And then now, months and months later, everyone's trying to come after Chad Weiberg and said he should have fired him, which is very easy to say. No one was saying that then. You don't fire a coach who's done all the things we mentioned after one bad season. He was in the Big 12 championship game the year before. That's just a firing you couldn't make. And I think deep down, if we put one of Jim Traber's true serums in Chad Weiberg, I think he probably knew that the season was going to go that way. But he wasn't going to fire Mike Gundy after one bad year, nor should he. And I've been probably the most vocal person that Chad Weiberg is the right man for the job. And now everyone's starting to come around. Everyone's starting to come around now, seeing what the hires that he's made. And I haven't wavered from that one iota. And so, yeah, I trust Chad to get it right. And I think, again, if Oklahoma State goes 0-9 in Big 12 play this year, which you and I have no reason to believe they won't, Oklahoma State would join Kansas from 2011 to 2012 and Baylor, who did it 3 years in a row, as the only teams to go winless in consecutive Big 12 seasons. And OSU really needs that historic level rebuild. So if you're Chad Weiberg, that has to be the reason why Alex Golesh is atop the list. That's the reason. This is a historic, we haven't talked enough, Colby, about the depths which Oklahoma State's gone to. That's the depths. Those are the two worst situations any school's been in the Big 12. Kansas, post Mark Mangino, and Baylor before Art Briles got there from 99 to 2001. Baylor was a laughing stock in the Big 12. Everyone was like, how did we let Baylor into this conference? They were so bad. Like, we should have got Houston or Louisville, someone else. Besides them, SMU even was talked back then. So that's the depths which Oklahoma State's at. Do you hire an Eric Morris who, until this year, had 5 wins and 6 wins? I don't know. That's a little bit more of a risk. I think that's also why I think Colin Klein was a little further down the list. You saw Texas A&M get down 30-7, 30-3 at halftime against South Carolina. I think they came back and won that game, of course, but you've seen spells from A&M in a given year. You've seen Kevin Sumlin had a big year there with Manziel. Mike Sherman had a good year or two there, here and there at A&M, but the A&M always usually kind of levels out. And I think he wanted to see, is this a Mike Elko thing at A&M, or is this a Colin Klein thing at A&M? And I think that uneasiness or that unknown quality there with Colin Klein and A&M and Mike Elko, I think that's the reason Klein's not up there with Morris and Golesh. So all that's to say is I get all the appeal behind Morris. And look, Oklahoma State's an offensive school. I get the appeal there with the quarterback whisperer, like you mentioned, the Texas Tech lineage. And that's also, too, why I kind of favor Golesh, too, Colby. The Texas Tech offense doesn't exactly play complementary football. When you have to run the football, it gets kind of tough. That was Mike Leach's big bugaboo in some of those big games, was they couldn't quite line up and run the football when games got tight. And you look at Lincoln Riley. I mean, after he inherited Bob Stoops is probably his best team that didn't win a championship, was that Baker Mayfield team that lost in the Rose Bowl. Once Bob Stoops' players trickled out, you saw OU got pretty normal. Their offense was still really good, of course, winning Heisman trophies, but the defense was not very good, and they struggled to play complementary football. They would score so fast with Kyler Murray. I think they had 3 or 4 series against Army when Army just trained the clock, and they couldn't get stops. So the Leach lineage kind of would worry me a little bit, Colby, and that's why I like Golesh. I think the Heupel / Art Briles, more tight end centric offenses, those tend to lend to more complementary football also, in addition to the rebuilding factor that Alex Golesh brings.
Yeah, look, I think Eric Morris is a great offensive mind. I love what they're doing at North Texas, and would be happy to see that in Orange. I don't understand I feel like there's a little bit of this thought with Oklahoma State fans that, if you want to bring the high-powered offense, you have to bring Eric Morris. We laid out the resume for Alex Golesh earlier. The dude's offense is score points everywhere he goes. South Florida this year, 6th in yards per play. And that's with a game at Florida against SEC competition, a Florida team that, despite not being very good this year, has been competitive against some of the best teams in the SEC. They were really competitive against Texas, against Georgia. They still have Florida athletes on that team. South Florida went to Gainesville and beat them. Alex Golesh's offenses put up a lot of points. You can count on Alex Golesh's offenses. I think that's going to be a hallmark of his teams here in Stillwater. You can also count on Brewster Consulting Group. Do any of these sound familiar at your company? Processes that are manual and inefficient with no documentation. Data reporting takes forever. It's not accurate. You hear all the hype about AI, but you have no clue what it actually means for your business. Projects always running over time, always running over budget. If so, talk with our friends at Brewster Consulting Group. They help build organizations that run like well-oiled machines with clear processes, reliable data and reporting, and technology that actually works for you. They've worked with local clients, the Tulsa International Airport, Medify. If you're not local, if you're from Tampa, they've also delivered solutions for large international enterprises like DP World. Even better, Brewster was founded and is run by a proud Oklahoma State alum and season ticket holder. Learn more about them at www.brewsterconsulting.com or learn more about their methodologies by connecting with them at Brewster Consulting Group on LinkedIn or YouTube. Carson, I don't know what else exactly you're wanting to get into here, but Alex Golesh is bringing offense. If he comes to Stillwater, he's bringing offense with him. It wasn't Oklahoma State was never making a choice between offense and Alex Golesh, and somehow I think the Eric Morris conversation has distorted that just ever so slightly.
Yeah, and I think, of course, and I think people have knocked Alex Golesh's resume, wins and losses wise, by who he's beaten. There's this notion out there he hasn't beaten the better teams in his conference. He lost to Memphis this year, but you rightly point out he won in the swamp at Florida. And
also, has he not beaten all the teams that were kicking South Florida's teeth in for the half decade before he got there?
Exactly. And I went back to 2023. He lost 17-3 to Alabama his first season, and Alabama was
I remember that game.
Like,
I distinctly remember that game. That was
immediately competitive against Alabama his first year.
Yeah,
at South Florida. And like if you're Oklahoma State, like, isn't that what Mike Gundy did? He couldn't beat OU, but he whooped up on Texas Tech, whooped up on Texas that you pointed out, beat all the other guys, and won a ton of games, won 10 games more often than not there for a big stretch. So like that to me is like, okay, then if that's your problem with Alex Golesh, then you're not going to get over it. And look, Carson, I will continue to go back to the fact that, like, okay, you're saying these are easy wins for South Florida that they've been piling up these last 3 years. These have never been easy wins for South Florida. South Florida has struggled against all of those same opponents prior to the arrival of Alex Golesh. And I understand that the conference got a little bit easier whenever the Big 12 poached some of those teams. But these other teams are still teams that were beating Alex Golesh. Also, let's not act like he went to Memphis on the road against a really good Memphis team and got blown out. Ball bounces one way, either way at the end of that game, one of those teams is winning. Navy this last week, they were down by 10 most of the game. It's late in the season. Things happen. Navy's a good program. We don't need to go through and break down every single game on South Florida's schedule and say, well, they lost by 3 here. Does that disqualify him from being the head coach at Oklahoma State? No, his resume is fantastic. It is fantastic. And look, if you want to question the hire, like, sure, there's things you can pick at, but if you're adamantly against the hire, to me, that's laughable. Like, Alex Golesh is one of the top names in the country for any job. So, no, I think we pretty much covered it there, Colby. We do need to hear from Wolf Corporation, another sponsor of the show. Go to wolfcorporation.com. Cowboy fans looking to sell or lease your commercial property, turn to Wolf Corporation. Or if you're in South Florida, maybe you need some Oklahoma commercial real estate. They're the leading commercial real estate brokerage since 2010. Their experienced team specializes in showcasing your retail, office, or industrial space to the right buyers and tenants across the state. Based right here in Oklahoma, and they deliver results with local expertise. Visit them at wolfcorporation.com. That's WULF corporation.com, or call 405-308-3480 today. Go Pokes. So appreciate Wolf sponsoring the podcast as always as well. What else we have here, Colby? We need to get to, again, thanks to all the... Oh, we had Twitter questions too. Gosh, we're up against it. Maybe I can answer those at another time. But we need to get to Cowboy Wrestling. One of those hires you mentioned from Chad Weiberg working out swimmingly, and man, they look really good. The number one way that Oklahoma State was going to catch up to Penn State was getting elite level recruiting going and getting those elite level recruits into the lineup. And that's what they've done. I keep mentioning Landon Robidoux, freaking the most electrifying man in sports entertainment today is that guy. He just keeps teching people left and right. He's up to number 2 in the country. Lockett's up to number 2. Vega's up to number 2. And look, are they going to take down Penn State this year? Probably not, but they're coming. They're really coming, and it's going to be fun to watch the atmosphere there in Gallagher-Iba.
Yeah, taking another close loss to Iowa hurt just because we're right there. We're so close, and D. Lockett did his job. Vega is just awesome. Watched a little bit of him over the weekend, and he's fast, and it seems like he's just hard to get a hold of. He almost reminds me like in football, safeties will bait quarterbacks into interceptions by making them think they're drifting one way, and at the last second they'll pop over to the other side. I feel like Vega is just – he's one of those guys that's just always trying to bait you into doing something and then take you and just flip you on your back. And he's a ton of fun. David Taylor is doing a fantastic job. Even the other freshman, Alex Facundo, he took on 4 guys ranked in the top 5 at 174 pounds. He lost 1 2-0, lost 1 by a fall in the third period of a close match. He lost 1 4-1 in sudden victory. And then he beat 4th-ranked Chris Minto from Nebraska 2-1. Oklahoma State ends up wrestling Nebraska and Iowa, 2 opponents they'll face later in the season. So just before Christmas, we'll get to see Oklahoma State again against a Nebraska team that they just roughed up and see how they fare there. And Carson, February 22nd, Gallagher-Iba Arena, Oklahoma State and Iowa. That's going to be like you see these classic, these iconic pictures, these iconic moments from Gallagher-Iba Arena as it pertains to wrestling. If you can be in that building on February 22nd, you're going to feel some things that day. You're going to feel what GIA feels like. Because I'm telling you, we've been this close. Let's get them on our home mats. I think that's finally the time we will get them for the first time in 7 years by the time February rolls around. And it's going to be vibes that day in Gallagher-Iba. So I'm going to try to be there. We'll see how it goes. But, yeah, I'm really high on wrestling. And the national duels were pretty fun. It was good getting these teams together early in the season to see some of the best programs nationally. Would have liked to have seen Penn State there, but nice to have OSU and Iowa in the building.
Yeah, credit to Chad Richardson from Paycom helping kind of fund and put together the national duels there in Tulsa. I hope to see that back next year. Just a tremendous platform. I know it was on Flow Wrestling online. Hopefully next year they can get like a TV deal where we're going to all watch it like on ESPN or something, because that's something that I think first year success, hopefully see it grow, because that's what wrestling needs. It's a sport that has really been hurt by NIL, really been hurt by Title IX. It's just a fact. Title IX's hurt wrestling in terms of funding. So many programs have dissolved, and the conferences are all now kind of out of whack as a result. I mean, the Big 12 wrestling schools are just from all over the place. So hopefully that really gets going, because they got a lot of money too for competing there. That'll go straight to the programs and the athletes, which is really great. So no, that was a big success, and I can't wait to see wrestling. I got to get up there for a duel too. I want like a Landon Robideau jersey. If they had jerseys for wrestling, that's who that dude is a freaking electric factory. I love watching that dude wrestle. That's what OSU's been missing for a while, is the offensive wrestling that John Smith put a stamp on. Just how you can give up some points, but we're gonna score in double digits, and that's what that guy does every single time. I can't wait to watch him. So,
just real quick, Carson, on the wrestling. ESPNU, what are y'all doing? Why isn't that televised on ESPNU this last weekend? They have the contracts for the national championships, if memory serves. Why are they not trying to build a wrestling fan base? You can throw that on ESPNU over the weekend. There's some college football stuff, but Sunday it's got to be on ESPNU. So, and I'm sure there's contracts with Flow and stuff, but if you're trying to build up wrestling fans, throw that thing somewhere where we can watch it.
Yeah, and it was put together roughly around this time last year, maybe in the spring. So maybe the timing just didn't work. Maybe the time of year didn't work. I'm not sure. I mean, it was during, college football weekend. So maybe that's something they can look at too. But overall success. But I would expect that to happen. I think that was a pretty successful event. So hopefully it gets on TV. So a lot of the Twitter questions are what I addressed earlier about the search and the process that I laid out, that Golesh doesn't necessarily hop on a plane and go meet with Chad Weiberg over coffee. It's not really how that situation works out. So, again, just to sum it all up, Colby, I still expect Alex Golesh to be the next head coach at Oklahoma State. Nothing has changed my opinion on that or my sourcing on that. Again, it's a fluid situation. These things are crazy, like you mentioned. Like a lot of this nationally depends on Lane Kiffin, what he's going to do at Ole Miss, because if that job opens up, they could call Alex Golesh. Why wouldn't they? They've got a ton of NIL funding. That would certainly appeal to him as well. So there's a lot of moving parts here. But I expect Oklahoma State to name the next head coach after their last game, November 30th. I haven't deviated from that. I said first week of December would be when they announced it, because it's got to happen fast. I think December 2nd or 3rd is when the signing period / portal opens. I can't remember the exact dates, but they got to get it done December 1st, 2nd, 3rd in there. So that's what I expect to happen. And I think Alex Golesh losing and getting out of the playoff picture makes that a lot easier, because if you wanted to hire Eric Morris, that timing is going to be a little more challenging considering where they are in the playoff hunt. So nothing's changed my opinion or my reporting that I believe Alex Golesh will be the next head coach, and I think he would do an unbelievable job rebuilding this thing, because he's done it at not just South Florida. He played a pivotal role at Iowa State, Illinois, and Toledo, and from different levels of the food chain or the hierarchy of those coaching staffs. So he's been there, done that, and I think when they announce it, I think Oklahoma State fans should be extremely enthused and fired up and ready to support this program, because they're still doing it. Again, diving to the depths of Kansas and Baylor as the worst programs in the Big 12 over the last 20, 25 years.
Yeah, it's tough seeing these last couple of years in Stillwater. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. This is a different college football than whenever those programs were existing. This is a different program than what Baylor was at that time, than what Kansas was at that time. This is a program that has been willing to and is willing to invest, and we're about to see that investment. Great work with all your reporting, Carson. I know it's stressful. I know it's really stressful, and I knew that you had I think you told me the next day that you had the Gundy firing news, and you decided not to run it because you're not clickbait. You're not looking – you have to be right. You take it very seriously, and I know it's stressful gathering all this information, putting it out there, reading all of the blowback nonsense as if you've been wrong a single time in the last year. So you're doing a service to Oklahoma State fans.
No, I'm not stressed. I don't find it stressful at all. And again, I want to close by saying that I would question me too if I was sitting there in Tampa. I would. Who's this guy? I don't know this guy. He probably just wants Alex Golesh to be the next head coach of Oklahoma State. I have no feelings one way or another. I think all the 5 candidates are great candidates. I don't really have – I mean, I would prefer Golesh, but I have no personal investment here on who's the head coach at Oklahoma State. I don't. And I don't get stressed out by online hate. Again, I worked in the media for 13 years. I covered Oklahoma. I covered Oklahoma State. As an OSU alum, I had Sooner fans that hated me. I had OSU fans that hated me when I had the audacity to tweet that Baker Mayfield was the best college football player I'd seen in a while, probably since Justin Blackman. Shout out to him for going to the Ring of Honor. Covered the Oklahoma City Thunder, their very first practice in Oklahoma City. I covered that. I've covered multiple sports at the highest levels. I've been all over the country, and that's not me bragging. That's me giving people who aren't aware of me or who I am some context, because that's needed. Again, there's so much on Twitter now that people just put out there hoping to get retweets and likes and things like that. So I don't hold any ill will to South Florida fans, media alike, because I would probably be questioning who I was too if I was in their shoes. I do have an issue with local people here in Oklahoma who have taken shots at me, like a Robert Allen. I think that says a lot about him more than me. I don't know if he named me by name, but it was clear he was talking about me. I've made my thoughts on Robert clear over this show, and if he wants to take shots, that's fine, but he's wrong on this one, and I'm right, and I don't think he likes it, so he's gonna have to deal with it. So, Colby, I don't find it stressful at all, man. This is a fun show to do, and I didn't plan on Mike Gundy having a showdown in December. I didn't plan on Chad Weiber's contract not being renewed in time. I didn't plan on having all this info on the coaching search. But, again, there's a clamor to know what's going on because so many people care about OSU football. There's a ton of support. People want to know what's going on behind the scenes. Chad Weiberg has kept it tight-lipped to just about everyone else. But if I have sourced accurate information to put out on this show, I'm going to do it. And again, I take it very seriously. Credibility is all you have in this game. And that's why I take offense when people question my credibility, because they have no merit to it. Check the scoreboard. I'm batting 1,000 since last December. And really before that, I'm in my media career on TV. I can't go on TV and say something that's not true, or I would be out of a job back then. And while I wouldn't be out of a job here, if I got something like Mike Gundy being fired wrong, people wouldn't listen or pay attention to anything I said thereafter, and that's why I take it so serious. So no stress, and Colby, we got a couple weeks here in Oklahoma State. I'll have a new head coach, so I can't wait.
Yeah, it's been exciting. Didn't get too much into the actual game. It's midweek this week. My schedule was off. I'm leaving tomorrow, heading out of town. So this is our only pod here this week. Make sure you go listen to the Reload guys as well. Carson, last thought I want from you today, the Alex Golesh Bowl tonight, Gallagher-Iba Arena. Oklahoma State's a 4.5-point favorite over a 3-1 South Florida team tonight. Do we win? Do we cover?
Yes and yes. I mean, I don't
yes,
how good
yes.
South Florida, you said? 3-1? Who they lost to?
3-1. Oklahoma State's a 4.5-point favorite. I don't have their schedule pulled up. I can get it.
Yeah, look that up. I mean, they're getting Roy back in the lineup now, and that's, one of the preemptive scores in the entire country, prohibitive scores, I should say. So I think at home, that's a game you have to take care of business on your home floor if you're going to be what we think they can be, both in the Big 12 and at the NCAA tournament level, like you mentioned, being a low seed. So I would expect Oklahoma State to win and cover.
Carson, you're going to love the over-under on this game. 179 is the total for this game. South Florida won 102-67. They lost to George Washington 99-95, and then they won their most two recent games 100-50 and 108-89. They can score. We can score. 179 as a point total for a college basketball game brings me so much joy.
Well, didn't A&M lose to like somebody after Oklahoma State? Did that give you any pause at all? I think A&M lost.
Not really, because I see what Oklahoma State is about. Like, I just think the roster is put together really well. You got Anthony Roy back the other day against A&M Corpus Christi, and Corpus Christi put up a good fight. But, I mean, Anthony Roy, Victorious Miller, it's just too much. They've got the positions. A&M lost to UCF after they lost to Oklahoma State, and then they lost to they beat Montana at home 86-81. So maybe Texas A&M is not any good, but it still doesn't give me a ton of pause. I think this Oklahoma State team has good players. They've got shooters. They've got big men. Like, I just think the puzzle pieces fit together really well. But this game and the game next weekend against Northwestern are two really good tests.
Yeah, for sure. And get Gallagher-Iba rocking. It's time to get the old barn rocking again. Make Gallagher-Iba rowdy again. So we appreciate you, Colby. Thanks for doing this. And enjoy your trip to Branson, man. Ride those rides. There's some legitimate roller coasters there. I was not quite ready for how intense the roller coasters were there. I know Layla's too small for that yet, but you should try to get on some of those. There's some really scary roller coasters up there in Branson. I wasn't quite ready for that.
Yeah, we did Silver Dollar City last year. I don't think we're doing it this year. I think we're doing like Christmas lights and Santa's Workshop and a couple of shows. So it'll be a good time. Branson's always a good time. So
yep, enjoy it.
Anyway, yep, great stuff. Good show. Thanks everyone for listening. Everybody from Tampa, Stillwater, Oklahoma City, wherever you're at, we appreciate all of our great listeners. Thanks as always. Go Pokes.
We are back at it. You expect to not get your teeth kicked in on your home field.
This is not 1980s OSU.
Zach Robinson